Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, August 1st, 2014. I'm coming to you from a very lush farm in Missouri. I'll talk more about the crop report and also the drought out west at the end of the newscast. But first up, the Israeli-Hamas war. You know things are getting bloody and they're getting bad when the U.S. Pentagon comes out and openly worries about civilian casualties. This after allegedly Israeli tanks shelled a UN facility housing Palestinian civilians. Some people died, and this continues to be a very bloody operation. Nearly 1,500 Palestinians have died already. Both sides have sworn to keep on fighting. Israel's called up another 16,000 troops, and the reason why I think they called them up is not to further attack Hamas. I think they're worried about their rear flanks and other areas in Israel and this spinning out of control, because it is spinning out of control. Hamas wants its borders open. They say they're an open-air prison. Israel says, listen, you got to get rid of the tunnels and you got to get rid of the rockets. Israel says there's 5,000 rockets left. They've destroyed a few thousand. The Palestinians have shot something in the neighborhood of 2,000 rockets towards Israel. It's a bloody battle, and it's going to continue. And I say it is spinning out of control as we speak. Relations between the U.S. and Israel over this are, to say the least, strained. Meanwhile, the president of Iran, Hassan Rouhani, says that Israel is once again a Zionist tumor that's opened up. So this is more ugly talk of war. Of course, I got to hand it to Rouhani. He is an equal opportunity basher about ISIL or the Islamic State that's out between, in the areas of eastern Syria and western Iraq, this new Islamic State. He says they're a second festering tumor that's opened up, and they kill Muslims in the name of Allah. And so if you take a look from the Mediterranean, Israel, all the way over through Jordan, through Iraq, through all the way to Iran, it's nothing but a boiling cauldron that I think will ultimately end up at the very least, a regional war. There is no end in sight to the problems in the Middle East, and in my lifetime, I haven't seen things this bad and this out of control in so many areas. And speaking of another area out of control, let's move up to the Ukraine and the Ukraine crisis. The EU and the U.S. has once again put more sanctions on Russia. The sanctions are a little more biting, although there are some loopholes. They did not sanction Russia's biggest bank. Russia is mulling a response. Here it says in the newspaper, let me grab this right here. This is a USA Today, and you can see, the big headline here where Israel is intensifying the bombing in Gaza. But in terms of the sanctions, with the EU hits Russia with more sanctions, let me just read you the byline here. It says, sanctions aim to leave Putin no choice but peace. I don't think this is going to work on Putin, personally. He's a former colonel in the KGB, and I don't think that threats and sanctions and economic warfare are going to work very well. And Russia is mulling all kinds of responses. And remember, they have a vast oil and natural gas and supply a lot of Europe's gas. Now, right now, there's not winter. It's July here all over the northern part of the world. I mean, it's the summertime, so they don't really need as much natural gas and oil, particularly natural gas in the wintertime to heat homes. But, they can either divert supply, they can cut off supply, they can raise prices of supply. They're talking about targeting Russia, talking about targeting U.S. businesses such as McDonald's. Did you know McDonald's had 400 stores in Russia? Russia's a country of about 150 million people. It's a nice market. Also, they're talking about kicking out U.S. accounting firms in Russia. This financial war is ugly, and this is going to do nothing but increase the financial war, not bring Putin or the Russians to their knees. It's going to increase financial war, and financial wars usually precede real metal-on-metal wars. And by the way, the NATO is still conducting war games in Poland. Next up, we had this huge growth. Let me reach down here and get this for you. We had this huge growth. It's just the headlines worth the U.S. economy gains steam. It's gaining steam, although housing is still not doing very well. And they're having, even around here, I'm driving down the highway in a big subdivision that went bust that is, back selling houses again. You can get into a house with nobody down. Nobody down loans. None. No money down. That's what Fabian Calvo was talking about cheap money coming out. And we've had the pump and now the dump. And people like Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett's company are buying, Prudential, realtors, and they're turning into Berkshire Hathaway realtors, and they're selling these houses. Listen, if you take a look at this 4% increase in the second quarter, you add that to the 2.9% plunge in the first quarter, and that was adjusted. So now this is an unadjusted number, 4%. Well, add 2.9% negative to 4% positive, you got 1.1% growth in the first half of the year, and then now the Fed reports even its phony inflation number is picking up. It's when I say phony, I mean they don't count energy, they don't count food, and we all know that food has gone way up and energy prices are on their way up. But it's 2.3%. So if you have 2.9% added negative to 4%, that's 1.1% growth, and then there's, according to the Fed, annually 2.3%. Well, 1.1% growth adjusted for inflation. Well, we're still down over a negative 1%, aren't we? And how much of this 4% is inflation? And remember that when the first quarter number came out, it was 0.1% growth. And that got revised all the way down to negative 2.9%. So now this is out positive 4% growth. How much is that going to be revised down in the next several weeks? Who knows, but I'll bet you it doesn't stand at 4%. We don't really have 4% growth. I talked to my friend Greg Manarino. I said, dude, what's your read on this? And he says, it's fake. And they're faking the numbers as war propaganda. That's what Greg Manarino says. He also says, listen, all these bond problems, we've had bond problems and defaults in the EU and at banks over there. Now Argentina has got a default going on, and they say J.P. Morgan may come in. This is Greg Manarino. And he says, there's credit default swaps, there's interest rates. There's something going on there. They're not doing that out of the goodness of their heart. I'll have Gregory Manarino from TradersChoice.net on Monday to talk all about, this 4% economy and what's really going on. He's a smart guy. You'll want to see this coming up Monday on USAWatchdog.com. Now we have another big story coming out. I could have led with all these stories. We have this Ebola outbreak, and, hundreds of people have already died. 90% of the people who get it, die from it. In Liberia, the government says it's beyond the government's control. It's beyond the government's control in Western Africa. And, now there are health officials saying this could turn into a global epidemic if we don't get control of this. And here in the United States, they've already dispersed Ebola detection kits to all 50 states. But the government says, don't worry. Whew. Okay. This could be a terrible, rough outbreak that could cost millions of people their lives. 90% mortality rate. 90% of the people who get this die. This is a serious outbreak, folks, and you should keep an eye on it. On some better news, here I am in the Midwest, and look at this. The corn is 10 feet tall. I mean, look at this. It's beautiful. It's lush. A couple of years back when they had a big drought, the yield on my neighbor's field was 30 bushels to the acre. That was barely enough to cover his expenses for it, but 30 bushels. Now they're talking that this is going to be a bumper crop. And yields are going to be 170 to 200 bushels to the acre on average. 170 to 200 bushels an acre. Could be more than that, could be less than that, but that's going to be where a lot of farmers fall into here in the Midwest. I mean, driving out here, going through Kentucky and Tennessee and parts of Illinois, beautiful, lush, green, beans, tall, corn, tall, everything looking beautiful. And you wouldn't even understand that there was a severe drought out west. And I mean from Texas all the way on out through New Mexico, out to Arizona, up through California, Nevada, up into Oregon. I mean severe, exceptional, massive drought in several states. 58% of California has the highest level of drought. 58%. Can't get any drier. They can't measure it any drier. 58%. California, huge state, has at least severe drought, nothing less. There's no lush places in California. It's at least severe drought. Same thing with Texas, same thing, even all the way up to Oregon, which is not used to droughts. Oregon, pretty wet state. but they're suffering droughts, and a lot of livestock, corn, vegetables, fruit, beef, pork, sheep, lots of food is grown out in the western states, and it's going terrible. And just to show you, here's what the corn, the ears are huge, so you peel them back, and then you get these beautiful, lush ears. But the only saving grace here for, the farms and food for the world is the eastern part of the country, the western part of the country. Pray for rain for those people, because they sure need it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog. Thank you so much for all your comments, whether they're good or bad. I took a real beating on my Gerald Celente interview, but some people liked it, some people didn't. Try to be fair. Thank you for your donations. I appreciate it. Go out and have a nice weekend, and fear not.